Hi, so I'm going to diverge a little bit from my normal educational video series, and I'm going to talk about something that my undergraduate students have asked me, and I've also gotten some inquiries on my YouTube channel. And we're going to talk about 10 different ways to be successful as an undergrad and also how to get the most out of your undergraduate education. The first and foremost is what is called the Plus Zone Challenge. I borrow this term from a writer named Kevin Hendel. The Plus Zone Challenge means that you are bridging theory and practice together. In other words, everything that you read in class, you need to be able to understand what is the real world application. How does this help me in the career or occupation or lifestyle of my choosing? Okay. So in other words, what you need to do is you need to make your education work for you. And there's a couple things that I would advise you to do to take the most advantage of this Plus Zone Challenge. The first part, of course, is as soon as you have some idea what kind of a job you want when you get out, or what kind of a career you'd like to have, or what kind of a lifestyle you'd like to have, pick your major and pick your classes to support that job, that career, or that lifestyle choice. A lot of people think that, just get a degree in something and then get out and somehow the pieces will fall together. I'm not entirely sure that's true. Remember, education is like any other commodity or activity. Make sure that it supports one of your final goals. So pick your classes, pick your major based on whatever it is that you think you'd like to do in life. Now, when you're learning things in class, ask yourself, how do these theories, these activities, these principles that I'm learning in my class, how do they support the pursuit of the career of my choice or the lifestyle of my choice? If you don't know, ask your professor. Hey, professor, I understand this theory, but I don't understand. What does this have to do with anything? Okay. A good professor will engage you in that discussion and explain it. Now, granted, there are certain classes that are devoted to making you a more educated, more well-rounded person, classes that teach you information literacy, critical thinking, etc. And so they may not have a direct application to any specific career, but they are generally useful for making you successful in a wide variety of careers. And a good faculty member will be able to articulate whether whatever it is you're learning has more of a critical thinking component or if it has a very specific applied component. Now, a good faculty member, of course, will explain that, and they'll be glad that you asked that. There are certain faculty members that get upset or defensive about these kinds of questions. They're probably not that good. They're probably not that secure with their abilities. Take it for what it is. And that kind of goes off into, I'm going to diverge into a little bit of a tangent here. Remember that your faculty members are not perfect people. They are people too. They're a little bit older than you are probably. They may have a little bit more experience, a little bit more education, but they're people too. And no educator is perfect. Okay. In my own field, entrepreneurship, I was asked one time, who do you think the perfect faculty member is? And, well, I mean, it's obvious, right? It is somebody who has had a wildly successful career as a serial entrepreneur, who's had multiple startups. Many of them have failed, but each time she comes back, she starts a new business, and she's more successful than ever before. And then, after about 20 years of making millions of dollars, she has retired from being an entrepreneur and pursued a doctorate at, one of the top Ivy League universities, produced multiple publications during her PhD, continues as a faculty member to produce multiple top-tier publications, is an excellent educator. I mean, really just gets people excited about everything that she does in the classroom. And, she made so much money as an entrepreneur and her continuing consulting assignments that she holds as a faculty member that she doesn't even take a salary. And somewhere in the middle of all this stuff she's doing, she's had the time to meet a wonderful husband and has 2 wonderful children to whom she's the perfect mother. You're thinking, wow, who is this person? I don't know. I've never met that person, nor have I even heard anybody that matches that description. So the point is, accept the fact that your faculty members are not perfect, but instead look at the fact that you have a team of faculty members educating you along the way. Accept them for their flaws, accept them for their warts and all, but understand that your education in many ways is designed to be an apprenticeship. From each faculty member, you'll get something different, and between the dozen or so courses that comprise your major, you will get that kind of perfect faculty member at the end in just different components that is offered by each of your professors. So figure out what the strengths of your particular professor are and learn how to engage them on those fronts where they can help you the most, and then engage a different faculty member who may have strengths in other areas. Okay. Let's talk about number 2. When I was an undergraduate, a lot of students would go to lecture and then they'd hear the professor talk about the subject material at hand, and then they would read the book afterwards, and then they would do the homework after that. I never could do that because I played football and I didn't really have the time to do that. My weekends were basically dedicated for work. So I actually found that to be very beneficial for me, and this is kind of my study advice for you as undergraduates. So when you figure you have a topic on lecture A on like a Monday, what I would tell you to do is the weekend before, do all of the reading before the lecture and try to do as much of the homework as you can. Then when you actually go to the lecture, because by the way, when you're reading the stuff and you're doing the homework, there's going to be stuff you don't know how to do, right? There's going to be questions that you're going to have. But instead of waiting until after you've been through lecture to realize you have a question, go into every lecture with questions. Hey, when I was doing the reading, ask the professor, when I was doing the reading, I didn't understand. Hey, I was doing the reading, and now that you're talking about it in class, how do I do this one piece on the homework? Can you help me out with that? So come into the lecture armed with questions. And by the way, even as they're lecturing along, they may explain things in a different way than how you understood it in the text, and you say, oh, that's what it means, not what I thought it was. So you're actually going to be much more engaged in the lecture itself as opposed to just passively receiving information during your lecture. So do as much of the homework as you can beforehand. Do your reading beforehand. That way you can get the most out of the lecture. Then, hopefully your questions are all answered. You can do some corrections on your homework and you turn it in early looking like a rock star. Okay. The second thing is most universities have speaker series or speaker events where someone who is world renowned in a certain field will come to your university campus and talk about a topic of their choosing. Go to as many of these as you can. It is imperative. There's a few reasons. First of all, and here's the low-hanging fruit, your faculty members will see you there and they say, this is a student who cares. It makes a great impression on faculty. It gives you an opportunity to network with your faculty members. And it gives your faculty members, hopefully, a correct impression that you're not just interested in getting a degree, but you're interested in being an educated person. You are curious about the wider world more so than even what you can get within the context of your particular lecture. Go to as many of these events as possible. But the other thing that I think you should take away from this is that universities have large pools of money and they use that money to bring in these speakers. It gives you access as an undergrad to people that you could not afford to be around just as an individual person. So let me give an example. At the university where I'm currently teaching, we bring in speakers and it costs the university anywhere from $30,000 to $75,000 plus. And the speakers that we bring in are usually multimillionaire entrepreneurs, and you know what? Students can ask anything they want. They get a little snippet of time from legendary intellectuals, legendary entrepreneurs, legendary government officials. You will never again get that kind of access in the corporate world until you start rising up to the ranks of executive, and then you get more access to things like that in kind of professional development workshops for executives, or maybe during an MBA program as well, you would get that, or graduate school. So take advantage of these speaker series now as an undergrad, because it'll be a while before you get that kind of access again. Okay. So you do go to show off to the faculty, but most importantly, you go for yourself. When you are in class, the worst kind of student, I think, that every faculty, oh, this is number 4. Okay. When you are in class, engage with your faculty members. Even if you're in a large lecture hall, engage. Sit in the front row, ask questions, and participate. Okay? It shows that you care. It shows that you want to be there. It shows that you are interested in learning. Okay? Faculty members notice when there are students who are engaged in class. And it's not so much just to suck up to the faculty member because you think they're going to bump up your grade or something at the end of the semester. Although I'm not going to lie, that kind of thing does happen. But more importantly, when faculty members are sitting in a department meeting and the dean says, hey guys, I've got a small scholarship here. Who do you think is deserving of a couple $1,000 scholarship? They're going to say, you know what? It's this one student. He always sits in the front row. He's always asking questions. He's engaged. He's a pleasure to have in class. I want that student to get the scholarship. You don't know what faculty members are saying about you behind closed doors in a departmental meeting. And if you make a great impression, it opens a ton of doors. Okay? And I can speak to my own experience on this as an undergraduate. I always sat in the front. I used to think I was just worrying those poor professors to death with all of my questions and stuff like that. But you know what? I got scholarships. I got awards. 2 of the department heads at my university asked me if I would enter their doctoral program. It opened so many doors by just being there and showing that I cared, being interested. Remember, it's your education. Take advantage of it. Be interested in it. Okay? Undergraduate time is a very special time. This is your time where it's a relatively safe place to fail. This is the time where you can ask those questions, because once you get into the work world, you can't just pepper your boss with questions all day. They're going to get really annoyed. Do it while you can as an undergraduate. The next thing I would tell you to do, number 5, is study abroad. Absolutely, positively do a study abroad course. My recommendation is do a year or semester, but if all you can manage to do because you're in athletics or something like that is to do a short summer course, I mean, you can go ahead and do that too. If you don't speak a language other than English, obviously your choices are quite limited, but I think going to England or Ireland or Australia or some of these places will really do you a world of good. Now, if you are in a business major for your undergraduate, then I think you'll find that most decent private business schools conduct their courses in English, and so therefore many doors are open to you. If you're in other majors, this may or may not be the case. If you are studying a foreign language, going abroad is such an enriching experience. Personally, I studied abroad 3 times as an undergraduate. I did a semester in Lyon at the Lyon 2 University, and then I did 2 summer courses at the Free University in Berlin. Now, of course, I was a French and German major as an undergraduate. And I'll tell you, it's scary when you go abroad, right? When I went to France the first time, because I did my doctoral work also in Lyon, but not at Lyon 2 University, a different school in Lyon. The first time I went abroad as an undergrad, I mean, I was very nervous going because I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know what a French university would be like. I didn't know, if my French was going to be good enough to survive lectures. There was a lot that I didn't know. And of course, I'd been taking French for a long time. I thought my French was pretty good, right? I guess I had taken 6 years of French between grades 7 and 12 when I went abroad. I took a semester of French in college, and then I'd been taking French off and on since I was a kid, so I felt pretty confident. I'll tell you, when I started taking those classes in French with all the French kids, it was a terrifying experience. The professors, I don't think they still do this, but in those days there were no textbooks in the universities, but a lecture, which means in French is la lecture, which means a reading. The professor would literally read everything from these notes that would have word for word, and you'd spend the whole lecture furiously writing down every single thing the professor was saying. I'll tell you, your French gets really, really good really, really quickly because you're trying to take all those notes. And of course, I developed my own system of shorthand for note-taking in French and some different things. And so you learn a lot of French that way. Now, I stayed in a host family. I've had mixed experiences with host families. I think sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. Some host families are doing it just for the money, and those are really bad host families because they will cheat you every opportunity they can. There are other host families that are doing it because they want to be around foreigners, or they think it's important for their children to be exposed to foreigners, and those are really good host families to have. I think I had 6 host family experiences between France, Germany, and Ukraine. 2 of those experiences were really good. One of them was mediocre, and the other ones were terrible. And I think my experiences are about indicative of what you'll deal with in a host family. But nonetheless, staying in a host family does give you the opportunity to continuously practice your foreign language skills because they're not going to speak English with you. So you'll be learning a lot about language, and then of course do some activities that you would normally like to do in the States if you're from the States, and you can do those things abroad. I remember there were some people in my study abroad group, and they said, "Oh, I hate it here. I hate doing stuff with the French." I said, "Well, what are you doing with the French?" "Oh, I'm doing theater." "Well, do you do theater back in the States?" "No." "Well, what makes you think doing theater in France is going to be any more fun if you don't do it in the States?" Okay. When I studied abroad, I coached the local American football team, and I spent time lifting weights and the same kinds of things I like to do at home. And guess what? They were the same kinds of people in weight rooms and playing football than we were in the States, and I had just a grand time. And as you start talking to people, your language proficiency gets much higher, but then you start working on cultural proficiency. And your time overseas, of course, you'll learn different theories and all that kind of stuff than what you'd normally get in the States, but that's not really the point. It helps you learn more about yourself and what kinds of things are important to you. That's really what you get out of study abroad. And so I'm just kind of speaking about my experiences in France, and it really helped take my French to the next level. And after I finished my one semester in Lyon, I went straight to Germany to the Free University in Berlin to do a summer program. And my German, guess what? It wasn't really all that good at that time. I think I'd taken 2 semesters of German, and I'd taken a semester off, and whatever. And I'll tell you, those first 2 weeks were terrifying. I didn't have a clue what was going on. And then slowly I got it. Slowly I started learning German. It just came natural. I had to go abroad one more time to Germany to really take my German to kind of the next level. But I learned so much more in these intensive language learning environments because you had to speak German, you had to hear German, I had to read German all the time, and that's what I needed to get my German to the level that needed to be for a degree in German. So those are just kind of some thoughts about study abroad. And one more note that I'll leave you with before we go on to item number 6. If you study abroad, don't hang out with all the other, if you're American, for example, don't hang out with all the other Americans or all the other foreigners, because then they'll just all start speaking English and your language abilities will not progress. Hang out with local students, hang out with local people, hang out with the same kinds of people that you'd hang out with back in the States. So for example, if you like weightlifting and hanging out with all your buddies from the gym, hang out with all your buddies from the gym in France or Germany or Italy or wherever else you'll go. That's important to remember. So hang out with local people. And yes, all the other Americans or other foreigners will look down on you. What do you think you are? Too good for us. Don't worry about that. You're there to learn a language. Take advantage of it. Hang out with local people. This is how you get better. Another thing that this is number, gosh, time flies, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, I miscounted. I'm looking at my list and checking these things off. Number 5, use your professor's office hours. I think some people don't understand what office hours means. Office hours means that the faculty member has to be in their office so that you can go and ask them questions. It doesn't mean that they're in the office and they're working and therefore don't bother them. That's completely not what it is. Take advantage of your office hours. Things that I would do and things that I encourage my students to do with me, I tell them, look, if you're working on an essay, you're working on your assignment or whatever, you get stuck and you have questions, come to my office, ask me questions. Do it before the assignment is due and I'll walk you through it. Because at the end of the day, what I don't want is to give a bunch of students bad grades. I'm interested in them learning the material, pardon me. So students, come see the faculty member during office hours. Okay, that's what we're here for. That's what office hours are for you to ask questions. Now, ideally, you ask questions that are germane to the course or an assignment or a particular theory. But you know what? If you really like a particular faculty member, go to their office hours and ask them things about what do you think I should do for graduate school, or can you help me with a research project, or some of those things. Good faculty members are interested in helping students succeed both in their particular class, but also throughout the rest of their lives. We're here to help you. Take advantage of it, right? This is what not to do. I had a student a while back. She wasn't really showing up to class, and I have of course, I have YouTube videos. You're watching my YouTube channel. I have these YouTube videos that are designed for when students miss class. They can come to class. They can watch the videos and at least get a little bit of the classroom experience and learn some of the material. So I had a student give a presentation. And you can watch these videos on my channel if you're interested. I won't go into it in this video, but it was on the BCG1 matrix, the BCG2 matrix, and all that kind of stuff. And she hadn't been showing up to class. She didn't watch the video, so she gave this presentation. And you can't fake knowing how to use these matrices, right? You either got it or you don't. And her presentation, long story short, was a disaster. And I told her, I always what I do is right after students give a presentation, I give them feedback right there on the spot. So they know how they've done, they can think about it, and then hopefully do better next time. I said, look, you didn't come to class, you didn't watch my YouTube videos, that's obvious, you didn't come to office hours, what's going on? Why wouldn't, I said, think of office hours as the relationship you have with your boss when you're working. If you don't know how to do something, wouldn't you go ask your boss? This is what I asked her. And she said, well, no, I wouldn't ask my boss. Well, what would you do then? Well, I'd either lie or I wouldn't do it. That's why I want to be an entrepreneur. No, that's the wrong answer. Of course, I couldn't believe she actually admitted that. But that's the wrong answer, right? When you don't know what you're doing or if you've missed class, come to office and say, you know what, professor, I'm sorry I missed class, X, Y, and Z. Can you help me through this material, please? A good faculty member will not turn you away. Now, most faculty members, myself included, I got it. Maybe you've got class, maybe you've got sports, maybe you got something during when I have office hours. That's okay. Ask the professor, hey, I can't make these office hours that you have set. Can I come at this other time, please? Can I make an appointment? Most faculty members, you can make an appointment. I mean, there may be some they can't make it that one time because they've got a meeting or some other commitment at the time you want. But trust me, they'll work their schedules to accommodate you if the faculty member is worth a darn. So ask, hey, I can't make your office hours, but I really need help. Can you help me with this? Most people will say yes. And this other piece for, I guess we're on number 6, is do your homework. I'll have students that don't do their homework and then can't figure out why they can't pass a class. And be consistent with the homework. I know in my classes they have a reflection due, a one-page reflection due, every week, and it's worth 2% of their grade each time they do it. Well, if you don't do 5 of these, you pretty much know that the highest grade you're going to get in the class, assuming you get 100% on everything, is an A-. So do your homework. If you're having trouble doing your homework, that's what office hours are for. I had one student, and she just had a lot of trouble writing essays. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do just like one of my mentors does. You just come into this classroom, or you come into my office. I've got this desk set up for you over in the corner. You just sit there and you work while I'm working. We'll work together. And when you have trouble, you just say, hey, professor, I'm having trouble. And I'll come over there and I'll peek over your shoulder and we'll kind of work through it. And then when you're all done, you'll be fine. And you know what? She had so much trouble in like the first 4 reflections that she was doing, but then she did that the 5th time. And guess what? She got 100% every single one. She just needed a little bit of mentorship, and I was happy to provide that. So if you don't know how to do their homework, but make sure you do that before the assignment is due, not afterwards. Now, college life can be very stressful. You probably have sports, fraternities or sororities. You're probably going to have like lots of other tests, assignments, and X, Y, and Z coming up. That happens, okay? If you're in a situation where you're like, you know what, I'm afraid I'm not going to get my homework assignment done because this particular week is so intense, tell your professors in advance. Say, you know what, professor, there's this one week coming up. I know that I've got this big assignment due with you. Of course, do it in advance. And I've got 3 tests that week. I've got an ROTC exercise, and I've got to be at a football game. Is there a chance I can have like an extension of a week? If you ask up front, especially if you have a timeline, like I need a week or 5 days or whatever, don't just say I need extra time. But if you ask up front for some sort of an extension, Most faculty members will say, you know what? Yeah, you've planned, you've been responsible, and you've thought through it, and you realize you have a problem. I'm happy to grant you that extension. Most will do that, even if their syllabus is very strict about, hey, no exceptions. If you ask in advance, they'll probably grant it. Now, like let's say you got this one professor who just won't get the extension. If you got 2 or 3 other assignments, I bet you one of the other ones will. Okay. Again, most faculty members are reasonable people. We want to see you succeed. Another thing to do that a lot of my students just can't get: show up on time. I have more students showing up 15 minutes late to class and they don't know what's going on. And then they're asking, well, I got a question. Well, you showed up 15 minutes late. We've already talked about that. We've already moved on to the next thing. It's a sign of respect to show up on time to your classes. And I got it. If every once in a while you're late, most faculty members aren't going to notice that. But the ones that are late like 15, 30 minutes every time, no. 5 minutes late every time, no. It's a sign of disrespect. And I'm not going to say that it biases us against a student, but maybe subconsciously it does. So show up on time. When I was in the Army, we called this Audie Murphy time. That means show up 10 minutes before you've got to be there. Now, I know sometimes you've got to run across campus and maybe it's kind of hard to get from point A to point B on time. If that's the case, tell the faculty member. I know from my own experience, I had a German class as an undergraduate and I had calculus right before, and they were clear on the other side of campus. It was a 15-minute walk to get there, and we had a 10-minute window between classes, and I told the professor, I said, you know what? Mondays and Wednesdays, I've got calculus right before here, and it's in this building called David Rittenhouse Labs. It's on the other side of campus. I'll move as quickly as I can. I'm going to have trouble getting here on time. And he said, you know what? Don't worry about it. That's okay. Because I told him. Whereas if I showed up late every time, that would have not been okay. I had another faculty member, same thing. I said, you know what? I've got ROTC. It's at 9. It ends at 9 o'clock. It's on this other campus. It'll take me about 20 minutes to get here. I'll try to leave ROTC early, but sometimes I may be a little bit late. He was totally fine with that because he understood that it wasn't me being irresponsible. It was just hard to get from point A to point B in a timely fashion. And I was very rarely late, but when I was, he didn't care. Okay. Next thing that I want to talk to you about, I guess we're at what? Number 8? I've lost track. I've got 10 things written on my notes, but sometimes I get a little bit scrambled. I get kind of pumped up and jazzed up. But I want to talk to you guys about grades. I have a lot of students that think that getting C's and D's throughout undergraduate is okay as long as they get the degree at the end. If you're planning on stopping your studies at the end of undergraduate, maybe that's right. And yeah, it's probably true. Do employers look to see whether you're cum laude or summa cum laude? No, they're probably more interested in the degree and where you got the degree from. That's true. Do they look at the GPA? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. However, if you get to a situation where you are dissatisfied with your career, the easiest way to transition to a new career is go to graduate school. Graduate school will give you more skills, get you a brand new network, and you can move on. However, graduate school is very, very competitive. And even a single C is basically the kiss of death when it comes to going to graduate school. Graduate school is more and more competitive than ever. And to kind of compare, I thought about when I was going for my doctorate. I won't name which schools, but there were some schools I applied to, which I did not get into, by the way. But there were some schools where I applied to, and there were 1,200 people applying for 3 spots. I mean, this is way more competitive than undergraduate, right? So you need to take your grades seriously and do the absolute best you can because you may need those good grades later. You don't know what the future will bring in 5 or 6 years, but you may be really glad that you were serious about your studies later on. This is so, so, so important. I can't emphasize this. Get the highest grades you can because you may need it if you want to go to graduate school. And then the last question that I get asked a lot is, well, what about extra credit? Some professors don't offer extra credit. If you look at a syllabus a faculty member has, yeah, they may not offer extra credit. But you'd be amazed. Sometimes if you tell a faculty member, you know what, I totally bombed my midterm. I'm worried about my grade. What can I do to make it up? Sometimes they'll give you the opportunity to make something up because you've shown that you care and you ask. Now, I know my own extra credit assignments are usually much more difficult than the original ones, but if a student actually shows the tenacity to make it through my extra credit assignments, you know what? I'm happy to give them the extra points because I'm more interested in did they learn the material than I am in, harming students with their grades or something like that. I don't think that's productive. So Well, that actually wraps up my 10 pieces of advice for being successful as an undergraduate, or 10 things you need to do as an undergraduate. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and like I said, I try to respond within 24 hours. And if there's any particular thing that you have a question about being successful in undergraduate, and you'd like me to make a video about it, put that in the comments, and I'll try to whip something up for you. I know this is a little bit of a long video, but I appreciate your sticking with me to the end. And if you like, definitely peruse the rest of my channel, and I will see you next time.